So it's good to be with everyone again. It's good to be here, and I'm happy to provide a brief update on some of the infrastructure improvements and engineering designs we've been working on since our last meeting. The primary elements of the city's project include retrofit and enhancements of the stormwater management system, reconstruction and improvements of roadways, intersections, and sidewalks, and utility upgrades. We've completed design of the West Stormwater Facility and developed construction plans for this 8.5-acre wet detention facility. The design includes a little over 8-acre permanent wet pool, over an acre of wetland plantings around most of the perimeter of the wet pond, shown here in yellow, about 1/4 of an acre of upland planted bioswales, a gabion basket infiltration trench along the west side, and a gabion basket ditch with sediment sump at the upstream end of the pond. These BMPs will help to treat runoff before it gets to the stormwater pond. However, the wet detention facility has been designed to meet state and local permitting requirements for water quality as if these pretreatment BMPs were not planned. The maintenance road around the pond is exactly 1/2 mile and includes a 12-foot wide paved path with 4 feet of porous gravel stone shoulders on each side. Some of these elements are shown here. This is a typical section with the stone shoulders that will serve as a porous pavement of sorts. An example of the bioswale on the upstream sides of the ponds, and a detail of the gabion sump upstream of the stormwater pond that will collect sediment and debris and nutrients. A full set of construction plans will be posted to the website this week. For perspective, I've shown here the relative size of the Market District West Stormwater Facility and Lake Ella. For reference, the sidewalks around Lake Ella are about 2/3 of a mile. And again, the maintenance path shown here in this dashed line is a little over right at 1/2 a mile around the West Stormwater Facility. Construction of the West Pond is scheduled to begin in February and be substantially complete by the end of next year. Due to seasonal challenges with that schedule, we're planning to delay the planting of the wetland and upland plants until the spring of 2022 during the prime growing season. In the interim, we'll place sod adjacent to the maintenance road, and a wildflower meadow mix will be hydroseeded to stabilize the pond side slopes and other disturbed areas. Design of the roadway improvements and East Pond, shown here as phase 3, will immediately follow the park and programming effort, with construction scheduled to begin in the fall of 2022. As a reminder, this is just a drawing showing some of those proposed improvements that we talked about at the last meeting: the widening of Maclay Commerce Drive, the east-west road here, intersection improvements at the intersection with Martin Hurst and Maclay Commerce Drive, and widening of Maclay Road up to the entrance of Premier and the Mosswood Chase subdivision. Again, all of these exhibits are posted on the project website for further examination. With that, I'll hand it off to Mary Margaret Jones of Hargraves Jones Associates. I will stop sharing my screen, Mary Margaret.
Okay, great. And I will start sharing mine. Okay, hello everyone. So nice to be with you again. So we have an update. We begin now to talk about not just things to do in the park, but the character of the park. And we want to hear from you. So just a little refresher of to build on what Jason just showed, to talk about where the park is and its adjacencies, the neighborhoods around it. And of course, you saw on the west, on the left, the wet detention pond, the wet detention facility that will be built. On the far right, on the east, note that that one we can completely transform. So that one will be integral to the park. It will still do its duty in terms of water, but it can become a wetland that can be integral with the park. So remember that pink outline because you'll see it again on some of the diagrams. So just to recap some of the feedback we've gotten so far. In August, we asked for feedback in these categories: overall, more specific, structures, bike and skate, vegetation, connectivity. And these are some of the feedback we got. So overall, multi-use, flexible space, green space. A lot you can see: native plants, shade trees, splash pad and play. And in general, I hear what we heard a lot was community, welcoming, and family oriented. So to be more specific, this is one of the questions we asked, which was, what are the 3 elements of a park you would like to see at the Market District Park? People were asked to choose 3. And you can see the top ones that came, sort of loud and clear: paths for running and walking, shaded gathering spaces, trees and built, pavilions, playground, and water elements, places to cool off and play in as part of that. So, and then open spaces. So really, those dominated the feedback we got. And then as you go down the list, you can see some of the more specific things that people noted that they would like to see, from pickleball to community event space, to bike play, to dog park, etc. So then this word cloud, the size of the word or phrase rather denotes how many times it was said. So this, based on that question we were just looking at. So again, what are the 3 elements of a park you would like to see? And you can see loud and clear: native plantings, multi-use path, pollinator gardens, shade trees, farmers market space, water element. And then you can see smaller, some of the more specific ideas that came out of that. Then we also asked what one word or phrase best describes what the Market District Park should be or feel like. So now we're trying to get more into the character of it. And, huge right here: community, family friendly, inviting, fun, open, safe, relaxing, peaceful, inclusive, family oriented are some of the larger, some of the more frequent responses. So we took those responses and began to look at program. And we looked at program in terms of these 4 categories: play, socialize, connect, and connect meaning physical connectivity, and nature. So these color codings you'll see popping up as we move through those. So the pink color coding for playground. So this was our opportunity to test fit on the site. So this just gives you examples of 4 different play areas and how much space they take up landed on the site. So remember that pink outline of the site? This is the same outline of the site that we have to work with. So 2 of those are 2 of our projects, one in Nashville and one in Oklahoma City. And then 2 of those are in Tallahassee, Cascades Park and Tom Brown Park. And you can see how we wouldn't put all of these, of course, we would do one, but you can see how the size begins to fit on the site. And note that the Tom Brown example, the outline is the area of green around the play area, and the solid pink is the actual play equipment area. So we did the same thing with bike play and looked at various kinds of bike play features in parks. And you can see they range in scale, similar to the scale of the play areas. And so you can see those landed on the site. And then we looked at just having lawn space, because of course lawn space is important for informal play, for gathering, for hanging out. And you can see 1 acre, 2 acres, and 3 acres, how much space they would take up on the site. So you begin to see that we will be doing a balancing act of how best to blend or hybridize, all these desires and come up with the right balance. It's all about getting the balance right. For gathering spaces, we also looked at structured gathering spaces that create shade and also places to do various things. And you can see how they could be arrayed, or not how they could be arrayed, but what kinds of sizes they might be on the site. And then parking. And you can see here a wide range from 15 spaces to 125 spaces. And you can see how much area that takes up on the site. But the images below are meant to also evoke the fact that we don't have to make a parking lot look like a parking lot. Totally. I mean, it has to be clear it's where you park and where you put your car, but we can make it a part of the design of the park and mitigate its more utilitarian features. And then nature. And of course, as you saw in the word cloud and the bar chart, nature came up a lot. And this is just one aspect of nature. This is wetlands. And you can see some example sizes of wetlands that can get quite large, including some that are, local to you, and they can be fairly large. We also, landed and looked at pollinator gardens and other kinds of native gardens to look at comparable sizes and see how they would fit on the site as well. So this was just a sample of some of the test fits that we did in each category. So now we're here today with new work to show you how we begin thinking about a park and not just component elements. And to think about a park, the most important thing is to think about the landscape framework, because the landscape framework will last for generations, hopefully, 50 years or more. And programming within that landscape framework can change over time. And desires change over time. What's important is the landscape that you have for generations to come. Now, these are abstract diagrams. They're ideograms, really. Don't take anything literally, like the green dots, for instance, are not representing trees. They are just representing an area of landscape. And these are different ways we could do landscape on the site. It could be more informal, or what we're calling pastoral, and program would be fit within that. It could be more formal, more horticultural, if you will, more a series of outdoor rooms that are, are more like your house, arranged in a kind of room to room rectilinear fashion. Whereas informal, the first one, you could imagine a more meandering experience. And then the bottom one, which we call blending, is really sort of blending with the nature that exists on the site. So blending the wetland features, blending the existing trees so that you have a more natural and organic feel, so more ecological, if you will, sort of fading to the more urban. So more ecological sort of transitions to more urban. So just to go through each of those, informal or pastoral, a sweeping landscape with a program inserted throughout. And you could imagine this kind of character. So imagine sinuous curves, curvilinear walks, winding their way through a landscape, and of course, program and things to do along the way, but a more, again, sort of pastoral feeling. Or formal, what we call more horticultural or more patchwork, you can imagine, straight lines, outdoor rooms, a layout that has avenues, that has alleys of trees, and then areas that are set up for gardens are for, festivals or other outdoor uses, and play, of course, all the program that we know we want. And then blended or ecological, the sort of gradient across the site. You could imagine a framework that's more like this, one that builds on the ecology we do have around the site and on the west and east ends, or will have, and then uses that as a kind of framework. So imagine the first two feel more like designed landscapes. And then imagine that this one feels more like nature that you've encountered and stumbled upon, less consciously designed, although of course it will be designed because it will be man-made by us. So these are examples of our projects where we have put in ecological frameworks as structures for the park. So now we begin to look at how program might fit into each of these and how program might feel different in each of these. Now, we can put the same amount of program, the same programs in any of these, but they will feel different. And that's what we'd like to hear from you today, is how you want the park to feel. So again, we have informal, we have formal, and we have blended, or if you will, pastoral, horticultural, and ecological. All of them landscape frameworks within which things to do will be inserted. So we begin looking at how that might work. So the informal one, the more pastoral one, you see here sort of curvilinear forms, winding paths, sort of meandering through a landscape. And then you see by labels, you see all the kinds of programs we've heard that people really want in the park. The more formal one, the more patchwork one, you begin to see here how the outdoor rooms are more organized, more like a layout of a floor plan that's rectilinear. Still, that doesn't mean it's not beautiful. It doesn't mean it's not rich and landscape forward. It's just landscape that has a different kind of feel, more like some of the parks that you might encounter around the world. And then finally, ecological. So really about discovery within a sort of natural landscape that you just encountered. And the program might feel different in one to another. So look at these cartoon sketches, if you will. They aren't yet designs, but these cartoon sketches give you a sense, we hope, of what it might feel like, the pastoral versus the horticultural versus the ecological, or informal versus formal versus blended. Now, things to do can work in all of those. So you might think of sort of play in different ways, like the upper right-hand image could be the kind of nature play you might encounter, say, near the wetland on the east side of the site. Whereas in the more urban play, you might have climbing structures, and a combination of all of these. So these are all open lawn, climbing walls, water. That lower left-hand image, second in from the left, is all about spray ground water cascading upon you from these very playful fixtures, creatures that you can climb on, towers you can climb up inside of and slide down from, etc. And then social gathering. And while we're not proposing a formal amphitheater on this site, we can make landscapes that allow gathering and allow informal kinds of events. And then there's just hangout space, whether you're hanging out, watching your kids play, or hanging out on a hill, or resting in an urban garden, or just riding your bike through the site, meeting friends, hanging out. And then nature as program, not just as a landscape framework, but as destinations. So think about nature as destinations. So pollinator gardens, wetland gardens, ornamental gardens, native gardens, all different kinds of nature destinations that you can have alongside active destinations as well. So that's where we are. Hopefully we've given you a sense of how each of these can feel different. They can all do the same things, but they would feel different. And we'd love your feedback today on how you'd like the park to be. Our next steps, we will, after this, we will be working and we'll come back in March, April, and be back with a more developed concept based on your input. So we will next have a singular direction. Undoubtedly, it will be somewhat of a hybrid of the three different kinds of approaches we just showed you. But we'd love to hear if one or the other feels more right to you. Thank you.